The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services. All right. Welcome, everyone, back to another episode of the podcast. I'm Mitch Feinhacker, your host. Got another great guest. You can talk to Kirk in a minute. He's got a really cool kind of restaurant concept, virtual. It's really neat. We're going to talk about it. It's nice to connect with him. And if you are listening on your favorite directory, leave us a 5-star review wherever you can. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like the channel, subscribe, and keep us connecting with great guests. So let's get on with the show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Feinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode. All right, Kirk, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on a Friday morning.
Thanks, Mitch.
Where are you located, by the way? I forgot to ask you.
I'm actually in the Fort Myers, Naples, Florida area.
Got it. You guys had some storms this year, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't so bad, but
not for you guys.
A little north was worse, but a couple of years ago it was pretty bad.
Yeah, right. That's true. Is what's the weather like today? It's freezing here.
It's a little cool today, but it's still, 70 and sunny is.
I was going to say that's relative.
Still great.
Yeah, well, break out your fur coats, right? The people down there are crazy. All right, so I appreciate coming on. Why don't we start, because we're going to talk about Profit Cooker, right? Profit Cookers and
yes,
your whole virtual business, but why don't we go back and talk about your background in business and, working and how you got started, and I don't know, share the whole story, and then second half we'll do all about Profit Cookers and what you're learning and
sure,
do's and don'ts, stuff like that.
So I grew up in Staten Island, New York.
Okay.
As a son of a New York City detective. Went to college at Pace University in New York City and the Westchester campus.
White Plains, right?
Actually Pleasantville. Campus.
Yeah, well, it's right in that area.
Then moved to Chicago after I graduated for love.
Okay.
And got my first job in the electrical distribution business in Chicago. Stayed in that industry for about 17 years.
Okay.
Exited that industry to go into the food industry for a friend of mine that owned a chain of restaurants in the Chicagoland area called Aurelio's Pizza.
Okay.
Eventually becoming the COO of that company a couple of years later, and then left there to become the COO of a chain of breakfast lunch concepts that were owned by the Portillo group out of Chicago, which is a big. Portillo's is now they're on the New York Stock Exchange, but
Right.
They had a breakfast concept, and we bought them out, and then grew that. And I left there, started my own restaurant called Crave in a small town in Illinois.
Okay.
It wasn't going great. It was just too much of a sleepy town, I guess.
Chicago suburb, right?
Yeah, Chicago suburb.
Yeah.
But that's where I learned how to do virtual brands. I had a friend of mine who was with a company that was kind of creating this idea of a virtual brand back in 2019. And I became their first licensee, my restaurant. And I learned I learned what they were doing and how they marketed through Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub. And then we would make their food and the drivers would pick it up. And I said, oh, this is interesting. We can make this into a business model.
Yeah.
So I decided
to franchise. It was a licensing arrangement?
It was a licensing. Yeah, not a franchise. A little bit different. The franchising is a little bit different in that everything has to be done exactly the same everywhere.
Of course. It's
where licensing
more filing, more complicated for the franchisor. Right?
Much more complicated.
Yeah.
By licensing it also gave the restaurant owners more autonomy.
Yeah, of course.
Which I felt was better.
Yeah.
In this particular model for a few different reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point.
Okay.
So I decided to close that restaurant in January of 2020.
That was Crave.
Right.
Before pandemic started.
Just by chance. You talk about the accidental entrepreneur.
Right. Talk about timing.
It doesn't get any more accidental than that.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
right?
Can I go back for a second though before we get into Crave? So you were in, what was it, electrical supply business?
Yes.
Where you were supplying electricians with stuff, right? Because it was
actually, I was in the utility side, so we were supplying utility companies.
Utility companies. Okay, and then you had no restaurant experience whatsoever. So your friend thought it was a great idea for you to come and join his company to what? To be their in-house electrician? What were we going to do?
No, I actually became their director of franchising to start.
Okay, which you had no experience in either, or did you?
No experience in it at all.
Okay, were you ever in sales? You were in sales.
I was in sales.
Okay, so you were.
So I had the sales side of it.
Got it.
And honestly, when I started looking at the business model, and understanding it, what my role with the electrical distribution side was, I grew out of the sales side of it into more of the management side, and understanding the profitability and P&Ls. And so they would bring me in and move me around the country to different accounts, to help make them more profitable for the company.
That's on the utility side. I mean, on the electrical side. Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I got brought in to do. So when I moved over to Aurelio's Pizza, I really took that same mindset because we had all these franchisees,
right?
And we had to help them make more money.
Right.
That's the way I looked at it.
I mean, people think they're going to buy a franchise and all of a sudden, boom, it just goes, but it's not that easy.
Well, it depends on where the franchisor is in their business model too.
Well, I mean, isn't the franchisor supposed to support all their people? I know some of them don't do a good job of it, but if you want your whole system to be successful, you kind of have to support these people who, if they were that good at business, probably start their own business. They need a franchise. It's like a business in a box type of a thing.
Yes, and that was one of the things that the company that Aurelio's lacked at the time. They were a family-run franchise that was 50 years old, and they had 45 restaurants. It was mostly done through family friends that decided to open that brand, their restaurant in their town that they lived in, or people that were customers from years ago that wanted to bring that flavor to the town they lived in.
Right.
It didn't really have a franchise model around it, even though they acted as a franchisor, right? It didn't have the support systems that today's franchises have. So that's kind of what I was brought in. I was the first person from outside the company to be brought in that wasn't from within or family. And so I had a different perspective on how to do some things. And
so they didn't have the kind of controls that you wanted in terms of that you have with a franchise, right? I mean, because
there weren't very many controls.
Yeah, might as well have been a license agreement, right?
I mean, when I came into the company, we didn't even have we couldn't even scan a document.
What? Yeah.
We collected royalties by check. Yeah.
But how did you even know if they were correct?
We didn't.
You did.
They filled out a sworn affidavit saying this is what it was.
Right. Yeah. So they mailed it to monitor this stuff. They would mail you a check. Yeah. So it was basically really a licensing arrangement under a franchise model.
That's basically what it was. It wasn't. Yeah. So I brought all the franchise ideas around. So what we did is I went and got educated. I went to a lot of conferences, learned what some of the other companies were doing. And then within a year, we were probably the leanest franchisor in the business when it came to, we did about 60 million in sales.
Okay.
And we had 5 corporate employees.
Wow. Yeah.
And when I would go to the conferences, they were like, that's impossible to do.
Right.
And I'm like, well, we did it. And if you'd like to come to my office, I'll show you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And we did that through a lot of outsourcing technology. We put in new technologies.
They had no technology, right?
Everybody had the same POS system now.
Yeah.
All the reporting was done electronically, paid every week. We were getting paid monthly,
right?
Always a month behind.
Yeah.
Now we're getting paid every week after the week ended.
Automatically, right? Yeah.
Automatically. And actually what ended up happening is it made the franchisees better.
I'm sure it did, right? All these systems. You actually had an advantage that they did it backwards, right? Because you came in, you had all these franchise locations. It wasn't like you put a system in and it built and then you grew out of the system and you were able to put a system in that worked for everybody.
Yep.
It was ironic.
And it was a little bit of a struggle because when I came in, nobody likes change.
Right.
And then we're kind of laying a heavy hand on them saying, no, you got to do this. And we have to do this. And we have to do that.
Right.
But what I did along the way was that I figured out that we also didn't have a good method of pricing, and we didn't have our profitability in line with where it should be. And that's the stuff I really understood.
Like the guys would just make up their own prices, right? Was it even consistent across the board or not really?
No, there was no consistency. But also we didn't provide them with a cost model either.
They had to figure it out on their own.
Then all of a sudden we put the cost models together, then here's the pricing levels that you should be at in your market. And then we gave them some say in that pricing instead of just telling them where to price it at.
Right.
And we reduced. The biggest thing we did is that I reduced discount. Pizza business is big for discounting.
Explain what that is.
Couponing.
Got it.
So everybody looks at the menu.
Community. Everybody comes in, they get buy one, get one free or something like that.
Yes.
Got it.
So what we were doing is every time the company had this philosophy that every time they raised prices, they would increase the discounted coupon.
Okay, well that doesn't
made no sense.
That really raise the price, or it just fake raises the price?
Well, what I used to call it is our menu was an MSRP.
Right.
We never sold at that price.
Right. The cars are never sold at MSRP. They're always discounted because it makes it look better.
That's exactly the way I looked at it. Right. I'm like, so what are we doing? So when we started figuring it out, you started looking at the data. Now that the new POS systems are giving us this data, we were able to say, okay, instead of doing a $6, $5, and $4 off coupon, depending on how much you bought, we cut them in half and went to 3, 2, and 1.
Got it.
Well, and we raised prices at the same time. So now all of a sudden we built this gap of profitability. So
it all just drops to the bottom line.
The average store went from 6% profitability to 19%.
Yeah, because it's just hanging out there. It wasn't being run well.
Exactly.
So and these people had no idea probably what the profitability was at the end of the day. They really didn't know. It's just lifestyle, just cash flow.
Right. That was it. And not understanding that, wait, if I'm doing $2 million in sales, I should be making X.
Right. You'll be out of business. You don't even know it. A lot of pandemic, by the way, restaurants, during the pandemic kind of realized, holy shit, we weren't making any money. All the cash flow stopped and it kind of cleared the smoke,
Yeah. And so we were able to really build that. But what ended up happening is the trust that it built with the franchisees.
Yeah.
They were willing to do anything I told them to do.
Yeah, because you were like their hero. Now, what time frame were you talking? Because you said this is way before pandemic, right? Because you closed down the other restaurant in the early 2020.
This is 2011 to 2015.
Oh, got it. Okay, this is a while ago.
Yeah. So, and this was an issue that a lot of franchisors were running into that were older companies.
Right.
Not understanding where to price things, and then not understanding how to use those dollars that were coming in the marketing fees. So we started doing some different types of marketing campaigns that were really designed around the restaurant locality, as opposed to a general advertising market in the Chicagoland area, right? So we started putting billboards up in local communities, and then tying in radio with that, and then doing direct mail at the time, right? Because social media wasn't big at this time.
From the corporate level.
From the corporate level, we were doing it for the franchisees. We're collecting this money, but how were we spending it?
Right, of course.
So we were able to grow. We were 31 million when I started, and I think we hit 60 million in 2015, I think was the totals.
Wow.
So with 5 less restaurants.
Yeah. Well, because you just improved profitability by 4-fold, 5, 3-fold. No, yeah.
And it was a huge deal for those restaurant owners. So now, and we got into a process of changing pricing, raising prices on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Right. So, and we always chose, everyone was like, well, when should we do the pricing changes? So I came up with this idea of, okay, Black Friday is the best day to do a pricing change.
Okay.
Because consumers don't look at prices between Thanksgiving and New Year's.
Right. Unless it's a Christmas gift.
Right. But they really don't, they're in the mode of spending money.
Right.
During that time. So they don't look at anything closely. It doesn't impact their budget as much.
Right.
But if you do it in January, they see it immediately.
Right.
So what we found is when we raised prices there, they were used to it by January now, and we never had any issue through the rest of the year.
Plus, you're not like charging $20 for a pizza, and now you're charging $35. I mean, that's noticeable. So that's a problem. Even I deal with professionals all the time, and they don't raise the prices, and you can't just double your hourly rate. It's going to be noticeable, but you can add $20 and 30, whatever to the right. You add a buck or two or whatever, and you have 45. It's a big improvement, but if you do it,
the other thing
every year.
The other thing we did too is we looked at, when I brought in, we had an outside marketing team that would do some things for us. I didn't have that internally.
Yeah.
I outsourced that because it didn't make sense to have somebody internal.
Right. Of course.
But what we tried to do is say, okay, when do we actually sell pizza? Right. Yeah. And it's
in
a
the
very
sales cycle, you mean?
When you start looking at the sales cycle throughout a week, you start to realize that Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, right. It's not Monday.
It's like 70% of your sales.
Right, of course.
Right. So these franchisees would come into the meeting and go, we need more sales on Monday.
Right.
And so I gave them a challenge. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I will commit $1 million in advertising on Mondays if someone calls me on a Friday and says that they have too many orders, they can't fulfill them on a Friday. In 5 years, not one restaurant ever called. So I said, until that happens, we're going to keep advertising on Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Because that's where all the business is. Yeah, exactly.
It's like fish in a barrel, right?
Right.
Where do you want to fish?
What are you going to do? Spend $1 million on Monday and increase sales by 5% because nobody's really buying pizzas anyway?
Right.
Yeah.
So I said, we want the market share when the market is buying.
Right.
So they started to understand that. I says, and here's what's going to happen, guys. We're going to get so good at this on Thursday, Friday, Saturday that you're going to be asking me, why don't we just close on Monday because we don't really have any business anyway?
Right, and just get rid of the overhead expense.
Exactly. And so it was very interesting because that's how it started to happen. And then I would get calls throughout the year like, are we going to raise prices soon?
Right, they're getting used to it. It's funny because you can actually close a day and make money because of it. If you're,
yes,
I mean, that's just, it's funny. I had a guy on the podcast last week. He has a dog training business, right? Mm-hmm. And he franchised the business, and he runs his franchisor. I mean, he supports these guys like you can't imagine. And I've talked to a lot of franchisors, and they don't really provide the support that they need. And I think franchisors think, oh, I could franchise, right? And find all these locations. People are going to have their businesses. They'll run their business. We'll collect fees. It'll be great. I'll be out on my yacht and, smoking cigars and drinking bourbon and, whiskey, and it'll be great. But it's a lot of work as a franchisor to make your business successful. It is true that you can't yourself, Kirk, have 45 stores. You need a huge staff to go visit them and managers and it's a different managerial structure. So you don't have to do that. But on the franchisor side, if you want to be successful, you have to, really, really, really work hard to put these systems in place and get the, buy-in of all the franchisees. And you did that. Obviously, they got lucky bringing you on or whatever.
The systems and the processes were the most important thing at the franchisor level.
Right. Sure.
Right. And not everybody's going to like what you put in place.
Right.
But you have to have the guts to say, this is going to be better for everybody in the end. And this is why. And what I found is that when you explained the reasoning behind the choice, the franchisees got behind you.
Plus, also, they start seeing results, and it builds their trust in what you bring to them.
And not everything is successful.
No, but they trust
to the degree that you hoped it would be.
Of course.
But you had to get a semblance of order, especially if you our biggest problem is we had a lot of single owner franchises.
Yeah.
Well, why didn't we have multiple owner franchises?
Right.
Well, because they couldn't make enough money at it.
That was the problem. But the funny thing is the multiple owner franchises make more money, right? Because like ice cream franchises are common like this. You might make $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a little location, but if you had 10 of them, Now you're making some money, but it's a bigger lift,
Yes.
Yeah.
So my thing was, okay, let's get everybody to where the profitability should be. And the other thing was, remember, I'm trying to sell more franchises.
Right.
Very difficult to sell a franchise when you don't have. We had no item 19.
Right. You had no analytics. Right.
We had no item 19. They sold franchises without an item 19.
That's funny.
So the product was that good.
Yeah.
That people believed they could make money at it, even though we didn't tell them they could make money at it.
Right.
So once I did the item 19s, once I had the data coming in, the item 19s, it was looking good.
Yeah.
And that's when everything started to fall apart at the corporate level.
Interesting.
That's when the family got cold feet.
Really? This was just
They
too
didn't
much
want to
for
grow.
them, huh?
They wanted to grow,
Right.
in theory,
Right.
but when they saw the reality of it, they were like, oh, we're losing control. And they didn't understand that they weren't losing control. They were actually gaining control because they had the controls in place to add 100 restaurants, and you had controls.
I mean, that was it. You had readied them for scale.
Yes.
You can't just do it without the systems in place, but it's not so painful if you're ready to do it. You plug these people in, you just have more data, more analytics, more cash flow. I guess you'd have maybe a little bit more staff, but not much.
We wouldn't have had to add any,
Not really.
maybe quality control people.
Yeah.
That's about it. And we had, I'd put some systems. We used a Fran Connect system for our quality control programming.
Yeah.
And that made a difference.
Yeah.
Now, here's an interesting story for you.
Okay.
You run into quality control. Great part in franchising, right? So we're trying to figure out, why are we getting calls at the corporate office that things are different at the stores? Like the store tastes different than that.
Pizza tastes different, or the menus
pizza tastes different. Cheese sticks taste.
Okay.
We own the commissary.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
The restaurants are only getting the food we sent to them.
I see. Okay.
So I'm like, how is this happening? Well, we realized that I sent my team out there.
Yeah.
And we used this Fran Connect system. So they took pictures of all the food at every restaurant. They had the restaurant make the food, took a picture of it, just the way they did. We didn't tell them how to do anything.
Right.
We had no standards, basically, for how things should be really done at the plating level.
There weren't recipes?
There were recipes. There were things everybody followed.
Yeah.
But there were a few little nuances that made things different. So over the years, we had a salad, a basic salad, right?
A garden salad. Right. Okay.
That came with lettuce, croutons, red peppers, and dressing.
Okay.
There were 18 versions of that.
Oh, what? How could there be 18 versions if this is the salad?
Because over the years,
changed, right?
This franchise thought, well, there should be tomatoes on that.
Right.
There should be this on that. Everybody started doing something different. So what we found is that people eat with their eyes.
Yeah.
So when you had 18 different versions of something in visual, sometimes it was the checkered paper versus white paper. The plate was oval compared to round. Oh. The bowl was white compared to an ivory.
None of that
All
stuff
those
was
things
consistent.
Made them feel like it wasn't. So if you ate in one restaurant, went to another, you might think it's different.
Right.
Because it didn't look exactly the same.
Right. And when it's a franchise, you expect it to be the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we started doing that, and we reduced 99% of the complaints by going to a standard. Now, what we did is we changed some of the standards. So the owners, we got them all together and says, okay, listen, we have all these versions, and they put them all up there on the screen. They're like, holy cow. I said, yeah, there's a problem, right? We're a franchise. We're supposed to do everything the same. So let's come up with a standard. You guys have a say in this. Should we have tomatoes on it? How many people want tomatoes on it? We do. Okay.
Right.
And we made up this salad to make it look a certain way. All of a sudden, everything starts to look the same. There's never an issue. Nobody's calling.
Right, of course.
Same thing with pizza. We use these trays, these wire racks that put the pizza on, and then it goes on the round metal pan. So the pizza doesn't sit on the pan; it sits up a little bit to keep it crispy.
Yeah.
Well, you got to put them on the right sizes. There were screens that were made for certain sizes. Every size pizza fits on it a certain way, so the pizza looked. Well, they weren't putting them on the right sizes. They were just grabbing whatever one they could.
Right.
And by doing that, it made the pizza look different. It made it look smaller. If you put it on a big screen and it's a smaller pizza, it makes the pizza look tiny. Right. So all these visual things that were happening.
About that stuff.
Yeah. Even though, and then all that went away. Once the visual became exactly the same everywhere, we didn't have any issues.
Now, was it that there were operational manuals and guides, but they weren't detailed enough? Was that?
Yes, they weren't detailed enough. We whoever wrote them just assumed.
Here's the recipe.
Is always the worst thing you do.
Here's the recipe and whatever. It doesn't matter what plate it's on.
It's a medium pizza. Why wouldn't they put it on the medium?
Right, exactly.
grill. I mean,
Right.
but if you don't tell them, you have to spell everything out. Like you have to keep it simple, stupid.
Of course.
And so when we fixed all those things and we got everybody, in the same direction on that, that changed a lot of things for us. The sales went up.
Of course.
Every time we seemed
Satisfaction
to
goes
raise
up.
prices,
Customer satisfaction goes up.
customer satisfaction was way up. The following, we improved the books with photos so that when you went through a training, it gave photos of everything, so it was
What
easy.
it's supposed to look like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we basically retooled that franchise operations,
right,
overall. And that's kind of where my strength really was in the operations type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you must have learned a ton coming into that environment that you were able to fix and solve these problems and see how it was done in, somewhat effectively, but not really well. And I guess that's what kind of you said, well, you know what? I can open my own restaurant because it was such an easy transition. And so I had never been in the breakfast business before. Right. Breakfast, lunch I was like, oh my God, all these different foods. Right.
I mean, when I walked into that, it was even easier after having this experience at the pizza level, because now I was working in the pizza business, you work with a lot of young people, a lot of turnover of employees. Right. Now I went into the breakfast side, which was one shift of people, morning, lunch, 8 hours, all adults, because it's not during school. It's all during school hours.
Not available, right.
Right. And it became a much easier transition in understanding that business. Now, in that business,
that was
what we ran into. I'm sorry?
That was Crave?
No, this is Honey Jam Cafes.
Oh, this is before you got to Crave.
Before I went to Crave, yeah.
Okay.
And everybody told me in the breakfast business you couldn't get above $9, $9.99 for a meal. And I was like, well, who determined that? Right. And they're like, well, that's just what it is.
That's what it is, yeah. That's what they say. Who's they? I don't know.
Who's they? I mean, so I said, we have these incredibly beautiful locations that are way nicer than your average breakfast place, because Mr. Portillo put a lot of money into the visuals and the experience level.
Right.
And we started raising prices and our business went up even more.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden we were differentiated from your typical breakfast place. We weren't your greasy spoon anymore. We're going to spend $14, $15 a person.
Exactly.
Which is now $20 to $22 a person today.
Sure. You can't get breakfast for under 12.
So we built that business into a 29% EBITDA business.
And that was a franchise system too already when you joined?
We built that into a franchise system.
It wasn't.
But today it's not. My partners who own that now, they took away the franchise side and they just went, and they have about 12 stores now. Gotcha. So they expanded it out pretty well in the Chicagoland area.
Got it.
They've done a really good job of it.
What do? You buy out the franchisees at that point? Is that how that?
There was only one franchisee at the time. We had just started it. So they bought him out and they made it a corporate store.
Made it a chain.
Yeah, which made sense for them to do that at the time. And it was right after COVID. They did all that.
Yeah. I work with a lot of business owners. They don't understand the difference between a franchise, a model and a corporate chain. Corporate chain, there's multiple locations, but all owned by, one parent company and run under different management structure. People, they use the words interchangeably.
Yeah, I know. But franchising is tough. And that's why when I built the profit cooker model, I didn't want to be a franchise model.
Right.
And there were reasons for that. But more importantly, the main reason was I didn't want to deal with, I wanted the restaurants to have more autonomy.
Yeah.
I didn't want to I wanted to provide them with the business model.
Right.
And I wanted to control the sales part of it.
Yeah. But you didn't need the kind of controls that franchise boards.
Right. I didn't need that because it was a different type of business.
Right.
And I also wanted to be able to take that model and drop it into any existing restaurant.
Right.
Whether they were a franchise already or whether they were an independent restaurant.
Because if not, they'd have conflicts if they were.
Exactly. And we just wanted to create a model that dropped in and they could just do one thing, and that was make food.
Yeah. Now, Aurelio's, interestingly enough, that wouldn't have worked there because you wouldn't have had the data analytics and the control to fix all those problems if they weren't a franchise. No,
never.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do that with that type of model. I do know some pizza chains that do a licensing model.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different. It's not a full franchise. It's more licensing the name and the products, and then they kind of let the restaurants do whatever they want. Although they license the name. Yeah. They have that name on the building. Right. In our case, we don't have names on buildings with profit cookers. We're branding online.
Right. Now, before we get into profit cookers, so what happened with Crave? That was after.
That was after. So I bought a restaurant in Plainfield, Illinois.
It was
There was
operational. Okay.
an existing operation, and I made some mistakes there. I changed the concept too fast.
Okay.
I changed the menu up too fast. I should have left it in place for a little longer and eased out. We lost a big part of that customer base because of the change.
Yeah.
And we couldn't gain it back fast enough.
Got it.
It just
because it's what they're used to. People are used to certain things. They like to go certain places there.
And you know, in hindsight, that was probably the biggest mistake,
right?
That was made along that route. But it also helped me learn how to do virtual brands online.
I think everything's a journey, right? So if you change the journey, you might not be where you are, and if you're happy where you are, then
it was accidental. That, I mean, when you use that word, I mean, it wasn't intentional.
Right.
I mean, it was just, I was looking for other ways of bringing some revenue into the business to keep us afloat.
Right.
And then I realized, wait a second, this is a much better business model than keeping this restaurant. And then by luck, I got out of the restaurant just before COVID.
Yeah, well, that was definitely luck.
COVID happened, which then helped the new business.
Right, because of the virtual model. Well, why don't we do this? Let's take a quick break for some commercials, and then we'll come back and let's talk about Profit Cookers, because I think it is a great, case study of what's happened in our world, going to virtual models and how you adjusted. So let's do that, and we'll come right back. Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. All right, Kirk. So we were talking about this virtual concept. So when you had Crave, you started looking, is that when you started looking into like virtual services? Because let's make it clear for people listening, right? You can't have a virtual restaurant because you got to get food to people physically. They got to eat it and ingest it in their mouth. But you were looking to do a business that wasn't brick and mortar, right? That could be in the restaurant space. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah. So what ended up happening is I had Crave, and one of the early adopters of the idea of virtual restaurants, which came to me and said, hey, we have this idea, we want to, they were looking at franchising it, believe it or not. Right. And I said, well, I don't think this is a franchise model. I think this is more of a licensing model. And they decided to rewrite the contract to be a licensing model. And they had 3 brands. Okay. And they would market them on Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub. Okay. And then they would, when people ordered on those platforms, the order would get routed to my restaurant for the region that we could have it delivered in.
So basically you were producing the food for the brand.
We were the fulfillment partner for them.
Got it.
for those brands.
Okay.
So that's where I kind of learned it. And I was like, okay, this is great, but I don't think they really understand how a restaurant operates.
Right.
So I said, I can build this model better.
What was their background?
They were a technology company. They owned, it was a company called Ordermark, and they owned the piece where they consolidated tablets into one tablet at a restaurant. So all those DoorDash and Uber tablets that you would have to have, they consolidated that to one tablet, so you didn't have to have all these other tablets.
Got it. Yeah, my diner, I go and they got like 6 of them along the
which
window.
makes no sense when you can get one consolidated tablet today and you can run
but
as many restaurants.
They didn't understand about. I mean, did they understand about building a brand? Forget about the restaurant side, cooking and doing. No, they didn't even understand that.
No, they didn't understand how to build a brand. They were just looking at, okay, we're going to put this stuff out there, and they were a young company. They ended up getting a $130 million investment.
Wow.
From just after COVID started,
because of the technology,
from SoftBank, and they blew through the money in a year.
Yeah, no, that's what
they had 400 employees, and they ended up laying everybody off.
High burn rate, and then move on to the next deal.
Yeah, and so today they were bought up by somebody, and I don't even see them in the market very much.
Got it.
But what I was able to do is learn from that experience and say, okay, I know what a restaurant really needs because I have the operational side.
Right.
And we took that same methodology, created these brands with different culinary options. So now we have 25 brands that we market. And when we license those brands to the local restaurants, and we drive the sales to those stores, and the stores get to fulfill the orders.
Now, is this a separate business for the restaurant?
Yes.
They're not offering, like, putting those brands in their restaurant where you go and sit down and order, right? It's all behind the scenes. You might not even know where the food's coming from when it gets delivered to your house, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you see is when you go online, you'll see Pancake Paradise, for instance. That's our brand.
Okay.
And there'll be 9 different pancake options.
Okay.
Now, that'll get routed to a restaurant. Now, that restaurant might already make pancakes. They might be a breakfast
doesn't matter, right?
But they may only make 4 different types of pancakes.
Okay.
Ours is 9 different types of pancakes, which are the same ingredients they already have in the restaurant.
Right.
But the restaurant can't put 9 on their menu because their menu would end up being 8 pages long.
Right, of course.
Right. So
and they don't
we
want
give
to.
them this. Now there's another area that a person can order online, specifically pancakes that'll come from that restaurant, which they don't really care where it comes from as long as it's a commercial kitchen.
Right.
It's being delivered. They're not going to the restaurant anyway.
Right. But the restaurant's doing this really because they probably have capacity, right?
Yes.
They're not filling all of their time. They're not using all of their time up. They can still produce more food.
Of course. So what ends up happening it's a great business model for restaurants. And today, honestly, if you own a restaurant, a local restaurant, if you're a local owner, and you're not doing a virtual brand, you're missing out on so much of the market.
Right.
Right? Because your restaurant requires people to walk in. So you're limited on the number of the people that are going to walk in. Most of your business comes from within 1 mile of your restaurant.
Probably right.
When it comes to walk-ins.
Right.
This now expands your radius to 5 miles. Now, you already have 5 miles if you're on DoorDash, Uber, and Grubhub with your brand.
Right.
But you're fishing with one pole.
Right.
In that marketplace. And that's a marketplace. Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub are no different than Amazon.
Right.
They are a marketplace.
Sure.
If you're selling your brand on their marketplace, and you have a kitchen, commercial kitchen, and you can make food and you can make all kinds of stuff because you have all the ingredients and you have the cooks and you have the capacity. If you take on some virtual brands, now you might have 6 brands that online that every time somebody orders one of them, you get the order in your community.
Right. So they go to DoorDash, they see the brand, they go, oh, I want those pancakes. They order it, it gets routed to this restaurant unbeknownst to the customer.
Right.
They prepare it, pack it up, and deliver it.
Yep. Now, the customer can look it up if they want to.
Yeah, it's not a secret.
They've gotten used to it now. The customers know this goes on, where early on it was very like, what is going on? Why are they making this out of this restaurant?
Right. How are they having all these locations? Right.
Yeah. Or where is this at? Now, we do have customers that'll call us, and we take care of everything on our end. So the restaurant truly just makes the food and hands it to a driver.
So
they don't have to take calls
you
from customers.
Give a pretty rich licensing package. Then it's not just here's the name and here are the recipes. You're helping them. You're supporting.
Oh, we do all the marketing. We do everything for them. Right. We even guarantee them their profit.
You guarantee them a certain amount of profit?
Yes. So we guarantee our restaurants
floor that
30% of the sale.
Okay.
Most restaurants make more than that. But 30% of what we sell, they're going to make as a profit outside of food cost.
Got it. And you're not collecting money from them like you do in a franchise model because it's all going through your system. So people are ordering through you. They pay you $1. You send 30, 40 cents, whatever it is, to the restaurant.
Yep.
I got it. Well,
we pay the restaurant. We control the whole sales cycle.
Right.
Which is a great model for a business because let's say the restaurant decides they get bought. We've had this happen. Somebody buys the restaurant, decides they don't want to do our business. They don't want to do the virtual brands. We just take our equipment, which is a tablet and a printer, and we move it to the restaurant across the street and say, here's $100,000 in business for you.
Right. It should be stupid for the
It's happened.
I know.
It's happened. Don't understand why. Yeah. But nobody really ever leaves.
Right.
Like once you start getting business in, you don't want to leave. Money. As long as it's profitable.
Right. As long as it's profitable and you have the capacity to produce the food and it's the kind of food you can produce, right? But I'm sure you said you have a myriad of different types of foods and brands, and you'll always find something that fits with whatever.
Our average store, our average restaurant partner does 16 brands.
Wow, that's a lot.
But it really isn't because the brands are specific to type of food.
Right. So it's not like you're getting, you're double, you're multiplying your volume by 16. Like that's not happening.
No, those 16 brands make up one big menu.
Right. Got it.
Right. So picture having your menu and then having one other restaurant menu, but we do it by type of food because people search that way.
Got it.
So if you were looking for a BLT today,
right,
and you were in Duluth, Georgia, you might type in BLT.
Okay.
And you're going to get Badass BLTs as the only restaurant that sells BLTs.
Right. Other restaurants have BLTs, but they don't.
They don't just sell BLTs.
Right. You can't search for it. Right.
Right. And then you'll have 9 choices of BLTs on that menu.
Okay. And you don't know where it's coming from, and you don't care. You're right. It's gonna.
No, you just want it. If it looks like that, and that's what. Listen, they buy peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We have a peanut butter and jelly brand called PB and Jellies, and we sell thousands of dollars in peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in New York City.
Got it. And people are going to New York, because New York City is like that. So people, and you must have. There's probably more than one restaurant in New York City that offers that brand, right? It doesn't.
There's 7 of them.
Yeah, so it just gets routed. Would you have a system, an algorithm that routes? Well, first based on location, right?
It's all based on how DoorDash, Uber, and Grubhub, each platform does that.
They pick, right?
It's all their algorithms. So it's based on traffic patterns. It's based on time of day. Their algorithms are so robust.
Where you're located, where your apartment is, right? Exactly. Yeah. But you don't have to worry about that because they handle it.
They handle all that. Mm-hmm. We don't have to worry about credit card collection. We don't have to worry about any. They do all that for us.
It just nets to you guys.
Right.
So is there also an annual licensing fee for the licensee?
No.
No, it's not. There's no cost. You can sign up.
Zero cost.
And you guarantee them. It sounds a little crazy, Kirk. So there's no cost to sign up. I mean, obviously you're going to vet them, right? You're not just letting anybody sign up. Yeah. And you guarantee a certain amount. You don't guarantee them a level of profit. You guarantee them a percentage.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. And how does it go up based on their pricing model?
Yes. Yeah. So
you have a minimum price or whatever.
Well, this is the interesting part. This is something that, some of the things that, we talk about the accidental stuff, right?
Right.
There's a few things in the business model that ended up coming about that were accidental, that were very in our favor. So when you think about a restaurant, a business model, right? The business model is just not the cost of food. It's the labor.
Yeah,
it's the fixed costs as rent, utilities, all the stuff.
Biggest mistake business owners make.
Right. So the price that it's sold at in the market, the item is sold at a price in the market based on those structural costs of the business.
Which vary based on the market and location and the city and everything. Right?
New York City versus South Florida versus
rent's going to be through the roof, of course.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Labor costs, everything. Yep.
Well, but food costs aren't that
They're
wide
more
again.
Consistent. Right.
So in New York, where you sell a burger for $20, you might only be selling it for $15 in Tulsa.
Right.
Well, when it comes to incremental sales, the profit margin is much higher in New York based on food cost as opposed to the food cost because you can only sell it at a certain level in Tulsa.
Right.
Because in New York, that price that they're selling at takes into account all those other costs in that business.
Right. Yeah.
But we don't have to take that into account because that's already there. So in New York, the restaurants make 40% or more.
Right. Because they're not really increasing their fixed costs.
Right.
Just cost of goods sold.
That's it.
based on the products. And you're not going
and
into
the cost of
adding
goods
another
sold
restaurant.
aren't much different
Right.
in Tulsa versus New York, but the sell price is much different.
Right. Now that makes sense. So they're selling at their local market rate, and it's all profit because, I mean, maybe they got to add 1 or 2 people, right, to cook if the volume goes up that much, but still.
Yeah, if it goes up that much, but
Right.
that's all based on the volume, right? So
Right.
you don't mind putting somebody else in when the volume's there. But the reality is this: most restaurants. So what we're trying to, our goal for the restaurants is to get them 3 orders an hour of their operation. Okay, our average order is $32. So if we can add about $100 an hour in sales,
You said 3 orders per hour that they're open, not 24 hours a day.
Correct.
Okay, so let's say they're open for a 12-hour shift or something.
Right. So 36 orders a day.
Okay.
Is what we're asking them to do.
Okay.
Now, 36 orders would be about $1,100 in sales a day at a guaranteed 30% profit.
That's how you do it? That's the guarantees based on an average cost of whatever?
Yeah, it's going to be an average cost. So they're guaranteed the 30%, right?
Okay.
Most of them, but I always make sure they make more because we watch food costs. So we know where to price our model. And it's not like a menu on paper where you have to pay to have it redone and all this.
Right.
We make the change like that.
Right, because it's virtual. It's digital. Yeah.
And we're actually looking at doing some dynamic pricing coming down the road here. In other words, we know they're busy on Friday, Saturday, Sundays.
Right.
Well, let's have a different menu price on those days.
Like Uber, surge pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I mean, why shouldn't we make 50 cents more an item?
Demand is up, and I guess that could cut both ways, right? So if that gets out there in the press and people are like, oh my God, these brands, they like charge you more on a Friday night. I don't know. I got to think twice about that.
I don't know. It's one of those things like you just kind of look at it and say, are you busy or is it worth it?
Right.
But we're gonna look at see if that even makes any difference in the sales. Like, will orders slow down? Will they pick up? The online world is a little different than the restaurant internal world. And one of the things that we try to explain to restaurants is whatever you learned in the restaurant business, just try to forget about all of it because I'm going to teach you something that is completely different. And it's not going to make any sense of what you learned about being inside a restaurant.
Right.
So a couple of things that happen here is that online, the only comparison you have to whether or not something is quality or not is price.
That's for the consumer.
For the consumer.
Right.
The consumer only has that. There's no experience.
Right.
There's not like you walk into the restaurant and it's a beautiful restaurant and you expect to pay more because the chandeliers are nice or this or that, right? There's none of that online. So the only thing that differentiates you is the price.
Right.
So it's kind of like going into Las Vegas, right? And you can go to a buffet. And you can go to the buffet at Golden Nugget and you're going to pay $40. And you go to Bellagio and you're going to pay $150.
Right.
The food is probably all the same.
Right, but you expect it and perceive it to be better because you're paying $150.
And probably the visual
by a little bit better.
is probably better. The experience of the room and the chandeliers and all that other stuff.
They got more
That's what they're charging for. Well, online there is none of that. So it's truly based on price. So if I charge $1 more than the guy is charging over here, and there's not much price comparison that goes on. People don't like go to one brand and then click and then look at another brand and click and look. They're looking at the photo. So you got to have good photos.
Got it.
Right? You want the food to look very good.
Appealing. Right, sure.
And simple foods tend to work the best.
Oh, okay.
So stuff that people are familiar with.
Right.
Online stuff.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly.
It's like the comfort food of
plain
America.
Pancakes.
Yeah.
Plain French toast. Bacon, egg, and cheese on a bagel.
They don't want the complicated, fancy schmancy stuff.
Well, they're afraid they're not going to like it.
Right, exactly.
And if they don't like it, what do you do?
Yeah, people don't take a risk. They can't send it back. Like a restaurant, go, I really don't like this. Okay, we'll make you something different.
So the way I design the brands is that we design the brands to meet all the different days of the week and meal periods of the day that someone can order one of our brands 21 days a week. If they wanted to. There's a brand for every meal throughout the week, which was very important because when we went to the restaurants, most people order, you'll go to a restaurant maybe once a week. Well, the same thing with the person who orders online. They might order from one restaurant once a week.
Right.
They're not going to order the same thing every day.
No.
I mean, no one does that. I mean, maybe there are people that do that, but the far majority don't. So if today you're in the mood for a BLT, tomorrow you might be in the mood for a burger.
Right.
Well, we have another brand on there that's a burger.
Yeah.
And we have another brand on there that's, maybe you're going to order breakfast today.
Right. You have a whole array of of options.
Right.
Now, we're talking about this, and you have your finger on the pulse, and everything's great, and you got all these great ideas. What kind of mistakes have you made along the way?
Okay, so the mistakes are choosing the vetting process with restaurants.
Okay, yeah.
Well, because in the beginning we had to kind of
Like
try a
hire an
lot of
employee,
different
right?
things.
We're not generally not good at it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we had to try different restaurants. We didn't know who was going to be good, who was going to be bad.
Okay.
The hours of operation became something very important that we realized.
Okay.
You know, the stores. So the Holy Grail is a 24-hour operation.
Right.
Right. And probably the diner is the number one.
Yeah.
Your typical New York City type of diner.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
They can make every item.
Right.
They make everything fresh. They have all the ingredients.
Right.
They probably have 99% of the ingredients we use.
Right.
In their stores.
And they're not even
already
close to capacity. Right.
Right. And they're open 24 hours. So
yeah, but my understanding is there's not diners all over the country like there are in New Jersey, and New York, and Staten Island, right? We can go to diners all over the place over here.
Right.
You can't do that everywhere else, right?
It's not like that everywhere. So and 24 hours isn't something that after COVID, 24-hour restaurants cut down a lot.
Right.
We went from about 5,600 in the country to about 3,600 24-hour diners in the country.
Wow. Yeah.
But there's still 3,600.
Right. That's a lot. Yeah.
Still a lot. Yeah.
Right.
The other part was convincing the owners.
Right. They probably
That's
thought,
just
like,
a good
what
model.
This is not going to make any money.
It's new for them.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
Right.
And why would I do this for free?
Right.
It doesn't cost me anything to be part of this.
Right. That doesn't make sense.
Right. It makes no sense. And I make money on this. Like, why would you do this for me? And I said, well, this is what we put together. We know the market. We know what this can do. We know the power of it. I mean, we have stores that do $1 million a year with us.
Yeah.
We have stores that do $50,000 a year with us.
Right. They probably were not doing $1 million in their regular restaurant.
Some of them do more.
Right.
In delivery virtual brands, not just ours, but there's other companies.
Yeah. Okay.
And I encourage my restaurant partners to look for things that complement their brand, that complement in their restaurant, right, in the kitchen, that they already have, because they should be. I want my restaurant partners to be the strongest in their communities.
Yeah, of course. The more successful they are,
that's a win for me.
Of course.
The restaurant owner doesn't compete with me.
Right.
I compete with the other brands in the marketplace.
Right.
And I know that we do it better, and I know that we have a better model for it.
Right.
So we're always going to outshine our competitors.
So that's
and
your
we've been consistent with that for 4 years now.
Of course. That's your value.
So the restaurant owners love it.
Yeah.
Then you had to make it an easy process. So some of the mistakes that were made is that we didn't make it easy in the beginning. So what we figured out is, okay, everything has to work seamless. And this was very important when COVID ended.
Right.
Nobody wants to spend time prepping items because that's time and money. And if it doesn't sell, nobody wants to have waste. So you can't have them bring in items that are not normally used in their restaurant.
Got it. So
because
you want a brand to be able to create your menu using what they already have available in the restaurant, ideally. Right.
So you had to be able to customize the menu to some degree, even though it's the same brand.
Right.
And why does that work? Right. And you sit there and say, well, in a franchise model, you couldn't do that.
Well, not only that, if I'm the guy buying the food and I buy it in New York, let's say, right, at my apartment, and now I'm at my buddy's apartment uptown and it comes from a different restaurant and it's a little different, aren't I like, what the fuck is the matter? This is different than I had. Is that a problem?
Yeah. Well, but the reality is most people order from either home or work.
Right.
So when they order, they're getting it from the same location. Mostly. Sometimes the same location. Sometimes it's two different locations that they're ordering, but it's never, they're not really going out into Chicago on a business trip and deciding to order DoorDash to their hotel.
Right.
It's not as common as it is ordering to your house if you're working from home.
Right.
Or ordering to your workplace when you're working at the office. Right. So you're limited on the number of, it's not like having like every Dunkin' Donuts has to be the same.
Right. Right. Franchise. Yeah.
We don't have to worry about that. But we give standards. So if the burger, it has to be an 80-20 mixed beef or better.
Okay.
Right. So we give a form, fit, and function is what we do.
Right.
And then we customize that menu. So today, one restaurant might have brioche buns, and it's going to say in the description on a brioche bun. Another one might have sesame seed buns. It'll say sesame seed buns. So the consumer knows what they're ordering and they're getting it. It might be different from that standpoint, but I'm not going to have the place that uses sesame seed buns on their other burgers to bring in just a brioche bun just for us.
Right. And you're not using like Aurelio's was doing a commissary model. You're not providing.
We're not providing. We're not saying you have to buy this particular item. Now, some of our competitors do that. And what happened after COVID is that became a barrier for those restaurants. It became a nuisance.
Yeah.
So they dropped them.
Interesting.
They dropped the brands. We never get dropped.
Got it.
The only reason why our brands go offline in an area is that it just wasn't a good selling brand in that market.
Yeah.
And DoorDash and Uber have some now rules in place that you have to have so much in sales to stay online.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with that. So if you didn't get at least 3 orders a week, then your brand can be dropped offline. Which, if you're not getting 3 orders a week, it's not worth having that brand out there.
Right. So what do they? So if I own a restaurant, right, and I sign up with you, I'm getting the brand name, I'm getting the recipes or the menu, right? Yeah,
Yep.
Menu and the recipes, and I'm getting like pooled advertising. Is that what I'm getting? Promotional. You guys promote the brands?
Yeah. We so the promotional stuff is everything's based on a net sale.
Okay.
So if we're doing promos and discounts or anything like that in order to increase sales online, then we share in that.
Okay.
So if we sold for 100, we gave a $5 off. There's 95 total. The profit split is 60-40. The restaurant gets 60% and we keep 40, which covers the delivery, the expenses, everything.
Right.
And we run about 25% food cost. So the restaurant's making 35% of that $95. Is what it comes down to.
But there's nothing in the licensing fee. Oh, no, there is no licensing fee.
There's no licensing fee. There's nothing else.
What you should do is do it for free and say, listen, if this works and you make a lot of money, then we'll start charging you licensing for the guys that are suspect about why you don't charge anything.
Yeah, I'm like, guys, it's just what it is. But we have enough restaurants now, and we have enough case studies.
A proven model.
I have case studies for 4 years with some restaurants, and I hand these over. I show these, and they're like, seriously? And then what really sells the most is if you go in. Like, what we realize is that you have to go and meet the owners. So my sales reps go into the restaurants.
Yeah.
I don't do it. We don't do it over the phone. It's very rare to do it over the phone.
People, right? Sure.
And you don't get the best restaurants. We want the best restaurants. We want to walk into the guy that's the busiest.
Yeah.
Which is an oxymoron if you think about it, because you would think that the guy that has less business wants you more, but really the guy that has the best business, he has the best business for a reason.
Right.
And he wants, and he's usually really greedy.
Yeah, but does he have the capacity? Well, he's thinking, oh, I can make the capacity. I can get this going, right?
3 orders an hour?
Yeah, that's not that much.
Okay, 3 orders an hour is $365,000 a year in business.
Okay, well, that might mean a lot to him, might not. I have no
idea. For a 10-hour-a-day store.
Yeah.
So at 30% profit guaranteed, that's another $120,000 in profit to a small independent restaurant.
Now, how do you promote the brands? Because before I met you, I wasn't familiar with any of your brands. I'm in New Jersey. Right. We're pretty popular.
Well, right now, our brand promotion is truly through Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub their apps. So we buy marketing spaces.
So if you're on the app looking for something, I got it.
We get the best spots online. Okay, because we buy the advertising, we pay for it, we pay for the promos, but we price everything properly so that it still keeps the margin up.
Right.
Right. Like even though we give a $5 discount off of something, it still keeps our margin above 30% because we sell a la carte online. So when you order a burger, you don't get a burger and fries. You just get the
fries. Right.
You add the fries. And it's sides, so it's a larger amount. So what we found is by giving more food, you can price better. People pay more because you gave them more value, right, in the food. So like pancakes, we sell 5 stacks of pancakes. Well, why do we sell a 5-stack compared to a 3-stack? Because a 5-stack can be sold at $13 and a 3-stack can only be sold at $8.
Oh, I see what you mean. I thought you meant 5 types of pancakes. Okay, so you sell 5 pancakes in a pack.
Right.
Got it. That's a lot of pancakes.
And the pancakes cost 8 cents.
Yeah.
So we get to put 16 cents more food cost into the box.
Right.
We pick up $5 to $6 in sales.
Right. Sure.
Huge profit margins.
Of course. And people get more food and whatever.
And that's so there's different things that we learned over time about pricing and then what people expect the value to be. And they're paying a lot of money to have food delivered to them.
Right.
They're willing to pay it for convenience, but if you throw in that it's a good value with it, now you keep that customer long term.
All right,
and we do about 34% of our customers repeat repeat orders, which
Right,
is
but
very
maybe
high in this industry.
in the same brand,
In the same brand, yeah.
All
And
right.
that's very high. The average is about 16%
Okay,
for
great.
virtual brands.
So here's a question, because people are listening, they're probably hungry now. So it's short of me going to DoorDash, right, and searching for burgers or searching for pancakes, is there somewhere that I could go and see all of your brands and say, oh, I didn't know they did, peanut butter and jelly. I can get, and then take that and do the search on DoorDash. Is there? You guys have a website, virtual?
We have
brand?
a website. Yeah, we have profitcookers.com.
Okay,
and you'll see that we use that really for the business to business.
Right, but if somebody's like wants to see, all the brands you offer,
yeah,
like
we're working.
I don't know. I wouldn't.
We're working right now with DoorDash to develop our own app.
Okay.
That people will be able to go on and they'll see all of our brands, and they can then choose the local. They can put in their address,
right,
and it'll tell them what brands are sold in their community, and they can order directly from that. It gets powered through DoorDash,
right?
So DoorDash does the delivery and everything,
right?
But you're ordering directly from us,
right? It's an interface,
and we're just using DoorDash to do the delivery piece.
Got it.
Right.
Got
so
it.
That's coming soon.
Got it.
And then we're going to begin to market the brands in a bigger way. Actually, we're running a test right now in Tampa, Duluth, and New York City for a brand called Anytime Breakfast Burritos, where people can order our burritos direct. And we're running some geofencing advertising of that brand in the area. It's, so we do within a 3-mile radius of the restaurant, so that the restaurant, that the actual location that supplies it, so that the consumer can just go in, put in their address, and click right from there to place an order. It's a little bit different than most people go through DoorDash, Uber, and Grubhub.
Right.
But there is a whole bunch of people that don't use those.
Yeah, and you're testing to try and reach those other people. Sure, I understand that.
Yeah, we're trying to drive more orders to the restaurants. I mean, that's our goal.
Yeah. Well,
there's another accidental thing that happened.
Okay.
That was really interesting. And you're gonna like this one. So one of our restaurants calls me and he says, "Holy crap!" He says, "We've been doing this for like 6 months for you guys. Do you know my inside business is almost double inside my restaurant?" And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "I don't know if you know this." He says, "But we're not in an A location. We're in a C location."
Right.
They didn't have great visibility.
Okay.
Right. They were in a industrial park, believe it or not.
Okay.
That faced inward.
Right. So
not towards
have a lot of retail or food or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he says they were getting 200 drivers a week coming to their restaurant to pick up our food. He says, I come in on a Saturday and there's 6 drivers that I know because I see them all the time coming in.
Eating at his restaurant.
With their families.
Right. Exactly.
And he says, and then it clicked in my head. I go, holy crap, think about it. Every driver that picks up the food, where do they live?
Of course, they live in the area, and now they're comfortable with your location because they've been there 20 times, and they see your restaurant.
Maybe you were really nice to them,
and
they were like, the food looks great here, and they would never have, may never have found that restaurant. And how much of advertising would that have cost to get that consumer?
It's a logical conclusion, though, that this happened.
Absolutely logical.
Right.
Well, we started asking all of our restaurants.
Right. And they said the same thing. Oh, yeah.
The majority of the restaurants, when we asked them,
businesses,
majority of them, their business increased 20% internally.
Yeah. Activity leads to other activity. I don't care how it happens or what industry you're in. If you can increase your activity because you have online, whatever it is, it's going to feed into the rest of your business. I don't know what kind of Murphy's Law or rule that is, right? Like everything rises to the tide, but that's what happens.
To me, I think that's the greatest story that comes out of this whole program.
Story. But what you've done is you've brought these people to interact with their business. And that's a good example because they're kind of off the beaten track and hidden. And, and you brought them there, and now they're telling their friends and they're bringing their families, and it's a natural,
So now when I bring a new restaurant on, or we're selling them on it, we use this.
Yeah.
And I say to them, and here's what you have to do. I say, we're going to send you in a couple of 100 drivers a week.
Yeah.
That live in your community that probably may never have been in your restaurant. And you think about it. And I tell people this all the time, like, okay, how many restaurants are in your town? How many have you ever been to? And they're like, I drive by this place every day, and I've driven by it for 10 years. And I've never stopped in there.
There's a ton of those here. Yeah.
There's no reason to. You've never felt a reason to do that. But what if they were the nicest people and you went in there and all of a sudden you would be telling people how nice they are? I said, so I tell all my restaurants, I'm like, listen, no matter what happens when you do this, train your staff to treat these drivers with the ultimate respect.
Right. Because they don't get that other place.
They need to use a bathroom.
Right. Whatever you need. We're
Open
all
your
good.
bathrooms to them.
Yep.
Offer them a drink. Offer them a sample of food.
Yeah.
How many times do you make something in the kitchen and they made it wrong?
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Give it to one of the drivers.
Right.
Because you're going to create a relationship there. And that driver, he lives in the community.
Yep.
Not only is he going to be happy, he's going to tell 10 more people.
Of course.
Because you are the anomaly in this.
Right.
You know,
nobody's treating him well.
Nobody's treating him like that.
Right.
I said, so, and on top of it, these are your personal drivers now.
Right.
This guy comes in to pick up 5 orders a day.
Yeah.
He's going to make sure that food gets to that customer the right way.
And don't they get to pick like orders? They're like, I'll take that one, don't they? Or they don't know that?
No, they really don't know that.
Yeah, okay.
No, they really don't know that. But they'll hang around areas that are busier.
Yeah.
So what happens is, like, we know that on Saturday and Sunday mornings, most of our restaurants are going to be really busy with breakfast stuff being delivered. So the drivers know to hang around that area to grab orders.
It's like if you
some
want
of
to
them sit in the parking lots of these restaurants.
You stay near the airport and then pop and you
no
go.
Different.
Right.
No different. And they grab the orders and they know that, and they also want to work with the restaurants that are nice. They want to work with a restaurant that they know the food's going to be ready when they get there, because their time is valuable. If they have to wait 30 minutes for the food when they get there, they don't want to pick up from that restaurant.
Right. No, not at all.
Because now they lost out on 2 other orders that they could have been doing.
So if you create the best experience for them, you treat them really well, you're providing, good quality stuff for the customer. If all, somebody says to me, well, is that going to make a difference? I said, well, if everything was really firing properly, everyone in the system's happy, they're getting good quality, the drivers are, of course, your business is going to go through the roof.
Yes.
If you can do all those things right. It's hard to do, but it's logical to do. And a lot of people don't do it. Like, you and I aren't like rocket scientists where you're like thinking of things that nobody can figure out. You didn't even figure it out. You fell into it by accident. But you look at and listen, I've been practicing law for over 32 years, all business work for the most part. With small businesses, I've seen people, the reason it's called the Excellent Entrepreneurs, because I get clients that call me and they're like, we got to shut down the whole restaurant concept. I'm like, why? You've only been doing this like 4 months. Well, we didn't plan on this and we didn't do that. We didn't test this. We didn't try this, whatever. They didn't really plan on it. But a lot of it, you look at it and you go, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why wouldn't you plan on things? Why wouldn't you test stuff? It's all out there. Mm-hmm. Find out why this guy's successful. And they don't do it anyway, even though it's all logical. I'm sure there's people that decide not to sign on with you and you're scratching your head like, why wouldn't that guy do this? I mean, he's got the capacity.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. They're afraid.
And the funny part is we have restaurants that we contact, and my sales guys are pretty good.
Yeah.
And one of them's phenomenal. My business partner actually is the best sales guy in the company. And he and I started it. And he has accounts that took him a year to get.
Yeah.
And the account signs on and they start doing $10,000 a week in sales with us. And the owners are like,
why didn't I say yes to you a year ago?
What was I thinking? Right? And we're like, yeah, now you know why. We had one guy call us, and we called him so many times, right? And we were in Florida, and he was in Atlanta.
Yeah.
A restaurant called Landmark Diner, which is very popular, very high-end diner restaurant in Buckhead.
Yeah, Buckhead.
Super popular. Been there forever.
Right. Yeah.
And the owner's an old Greek guy and super nice man, but very set in his ways.
Traditional.
And he was like, I don't know if I want to do this stuff. He says, listen, if you guys show up at 2:00 in the morning today, I'll sign. We got in the car and we drove there and we showed up at 2:00 in the morning. And he was like, are you guys crazy?
Right. And you did it.
Now, what he had so many contacts.
Yeah.
So many friends that were owned diner. He helped us get into all these restaurants to grow our business.
That's the next stage of it, right? People are going to refer you to colleagues, to people.
You never know who it's going to be. Yeah. So
all the Greeks know each other. All the diners are owned by Greeks nowadays. So, it's just
it's a little different around the country now.
I'm sure.
Depending on where you are in the country, it is ethnic though, but it is different ethnics. There's in the Baltimore and Delaware area, there's a lot of Egyptian that own the diners. In New York, it's still a lot of Greek.
A lot of Greek diners.
In Atlanta, there's a lot of Greek, but there's also some Indian.
Yeah.
Or Pakistani groups that have some things. So, but a lot of immigrant.
Of course. So
people that own them.
Right.
Super nice people.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some great relationships that we've built around, and they think we're geniuses because everybody in this business, you can stay in your lane in the business model, and everybody benefits from it. And that was one of the things when I built this. It had to be a win for everybody. Because if everybody doesn't win, then your stool falls over, right?
Right.
It's a 3-legged stool. So if all 3 legs aren't staying up,
Yeah,
you're falling.
of course.
So we had to make sure of that. And once I put the profit guarantee in and then showed them, we give them a profit portal, which gives them the food costs that we see, base food costs, which are always a little higher than what theirs actually are.
Right.
And then we show them where we're going to price things. They understand how much money they're going to make every time they sell an item. Every time we sell every time they make an item, because we actually sell it.
And it makes it tangible to them.
And they love the fact that this is a business that all they have to do is do what they do best.
Yeah.
They don't have to market it. They don't have to spend time with a customer. They don't have to do all these things. Don't matter to them.
Yeah.
And they just get to get the order. And they almost want it. They almost wish they could just do this.
You know, Kirk, there's been a couple of restaurants in my area during COVID. They had to just do delivery. They never reopened their dining room. The building's still there. You can walk in there, but now there's just a counter and there's chairs and tables are pushed to the side because they realized that by cutting the staff and cutting different things, they were making more money. The restaurant wasn't making them any money.
And no headache.
Right. No headache.
You know where
people to deal with,
making sure your staff shows up, making sure you have you don't have a dishwasher today. You're back there washing dishes. I mean, I did it.
Yeah.
I know what it was like.
Right.
But I also understood that things had to be easy. So
sure.
So if there's ever anything, when I talk about the customization of the menus, if there's ever anything in our base menu that doesn't fit that operation in that kitchen, in other words, nothing should be stopping them from servicing their front of house,
which is the most important. Of what they're already doing.
Yes.
It should complement what they're doing. Right.
It can't, you know, so if you're a breakfast place and you also make burgers, but at 8:00 in the morning, if you get a burger order, it's going to really slow down your
right.
Then we shouldn't be open at 8 in the morning.
Right.
Open at noon for that.
Right. Yeah, because you can control the concept when it's available.
Yes, we control the hours of it. We control the concept.
That's great about
if
the whole
something
concept.
happens at the store, you get a big, a big funeral party. Party comes in to rent the place.
And,
you turn off your online ordering until your kitchen.
Right.
Do not this is all complimentary.
Right.
To your business. It's not meant to be your business.
Right.
The realization is everybody asks, well, how do I control that? How do I do? No one ever turns it off.
No. They don't want to give up the business.
Because no matter how busy they said they were,
they can always
they're never that busy.
Right, they're never that busy. Can never see enough customers. Well, Kirk, I can't thank you enough. You and I probably could talk for hours about this. I love your business model, but I also, for people listening, I really hope they appreciate what a kind of an operations guy you are. I mean, I probably could plug you into any kind of business and you'd figure it out because you get the whole concept. You're like, well, we're going to build this restaurant concept. We're not going to make food. That's ridiculous. The people make the food. Let's bring it to them and give them more of what they're doing. And I mean, maybe it's lucky that you kind of fell into the whole concept, right? When you work for those guys. But I think that people that do things and are out there, they create their own luck. I don't think it just happens, and that's what it is. So I guess it's right now the website's Profit Cookers, but I guess eventually it won't be called. The Profit Cooker name is really for the restaurant client, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I guess you'll rebrand that a little bit for people that want to know about the brands, but we'll put all the links in the show notes. People should definitely tune in and go on to DoorDash and Grubhub and see what kind of brands they come up with. And, there's a lot of cool things out there. And, I'm going to do that too, because I didn't think I could get this stuff locally. This is probably one of my restaurants I eat at, and they're making the stuff out of their kitchen. I don't even know it, because they don't put signs in their restaurants.
No.
Maybe they should. So I don't know. All right. So Kirk, I can't thank you enough. It's a Friday morning where I am, you too, actually. And let's stay in touch and watch you grow. And it's awesome. I think it's great.
Thanks, Mitch. It was great talking to you.
Let's jump to some credits and stick around. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinhacker and produced by Beinhacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.